Welcome to AECO Tech Talk, the podcast that explores the intersection of technology, innovation, and the built environment. We'd like to thank our sponsor, AECO Digitech, expert consultation for digital transformation. And now, here is your host, Dr. Johnny Fortune.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm excited to sit down with Mr. Brian Skripac, Director of VDC at the Design Build Institute of America, or DBIA. He's here to talk with us today about BIM and VDC standards coupled with design build delivery method. We're going to do a deep dive into the relationship between VDC and design build teams, the importance of technology, integrations, and well-defined VDC scopes, as well as managing the digital information in the process. So let's jump in and get started.
Thanks for having me, Johnny.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you, Brian, long-time friend and the colleague. And I tell you, Brian, every time I hear the acronym VDC or virtual design and construction terminology, you are always at the top of the list. I don't know of anybody that is more a subject matter expert or profound professional in VDC than you. So it's every time the term comes up, Brian Skripac. To me, you are the VDC guy.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very flattering. Thank you, Johnny. Try to get out there and keep learning and spread the word. It's an important part of the industry.
Yeah, it is, and I'm finding that not a lot of people who have advanced in technologies and firms and such, they may not be familiar with the VDC terminology, although they may be familiar with BIM, but. We can talk a little bit more about that as we discuss today, our topic, but I want to give the audience a little bit of opportunity to get to know you. So if you will, take a few minutes to tell us about yourself and who you are, what you do within the AECO industry, how you got started, and some of the highlights of your journey.
So I've had kind of a winding journey to get to where I am today, which is kind of fun and, also, provides a lot of really good experiences. So my background by education is architecture. That's what my degree's in. I did practice in a very traditional role for about 8 or 9 years before taking the BIM tangent back in 2005. I've been in a BIM VDC, back originally it was just a BIM leadership role. I don't think VDC was a term in 2005. People weren't really using that. But a BIM manager role, and then in 2012, I took a new position with the firm here in Pittsburgh where I'm at now, called Astorino. And it was interesting moving from an architecture-only firm to an AE firm that also had this construction management group. And we were doing design build projects. We were a single source delivery model, right? We had the design teams working next to the construction teams. And that was the first project I got in on, and it was very interesting to see what we could do with collaborative project teams and technology and a lot of planning, trust-built relationships that we can move those forward. We ended up getting acquired by Canon Design, and I was there for about another 8 years until moving to DBIA in 2021. Happened to be a kind of random conversation where I was looking to, make a career move, and I was talking to my old boss, Deb Sheehan, and she happened to be on the board at DBIA. I was working with her very closely on project teams where we were doing design build. I was leading the technology conversation, and we had all gone through our DBIA certification process and become credentialed members. And we were talking one day, and she came back. She's like, "Hey, I just had this conversation with Lisa Washington, who's our CEO and executive director." And she's like, she wants to start up a BIM conversation, a technology conversation. You should reach out to her. And so I had the opportunity to craft a position and a direction with her and take on this role where I'm at now to talk about how do we best leverage technology and design build as a project delivery method.
That's awesome. When you could create your own job description, you got to be happy with your job.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Yeah, it's a good opportunity. It's it's a good opportunity to help change the industry and push the industry forward from a different view.
That's very interesting. I didn't realize the background you had prior to Canon. So I used to in previous podcasts would save this for the end, but it's so good. I have so much fun with it. I always like to ask the guest if you could share something, a fun fact, interesting experience. It could be funny, deeply moving, whatever you choose. But we like to give the audience a little deeper insight, so something wouldn't be on your LinkedIn profile or in a regular presentation, something you feel comfortable sharing with our audience.
Yeah, I had trouble with this. I don't feel like I've had any like crazy, wild things really happen to me in the past. You know this, some people know, and I guess I'll make this connection back to something later we'll talk about, but having gone to school at The Ohio State University, a fun fact was when I was in college as a senior, I won a trip to go to the Rose Bowl. So back in the olden days, 1997, a poor college senior getting ready to graduate, got an all expense paid trip to go from Columbus to LA for a week. And
wow!
Got set up in a hotel, bounced around the city, got to see the Rose Parade, got to see an amazing football game where the Buckeyes won, and so I think others know I'm a big Ohio State fan, and myself and some of our other alumni colleagues tend to work that into our presentations every now and then.
Yeah, of course.
It's a fun fact.
Of course. I did notice that when you referred to Ohio State earlier in your response, it was the Ohio State.
You got to put it in,
so
man.
That's pretty deeply branded and I wouldn't say brainwashed, but it is deeply there. Too funny. I have heard of some of your colleagues getting up on stage and under the guise of calisthenics and some movement.
I appreciate that.
Doing the OHIO.
OH to Alex out there, man.
Yeah. All right. So I know our audience wants to know a little bit more. And again, some of them may be really hearing about VDC for the first time. Mm-hmm. But you have an incredibly unique perspective of the industry, not only because of your BIM background, your VDC background, planning conferences, presenting at so many conferences, and now working and leading the VDC department at DBIA. It's really, really quite a unique perspective you have. And so from your perspective, why do you think that VDC and design build, why are they such a natural and powerful pairing for the project delivery?
Yeah, I think there's the one word is collaboration, right? I think we talk so much about how do we, when we first moved into, the evolution of BIM. He said, I started back with this in 2005. I was 100% in that world in 2005. And I think, we all talked about, well, how do we collaborate better as a team? And how do we, do things better? And your ability to collaborate in design bid build projects is not the same as your ability to collaborate in design build. So I think that's a key word that really is firmly foundational in both conversations. In my experience, like I said, especially at Astorino with the the secret sauce that they had of saying that we have this AE firm and a construction management group, being able to see how we could share information and knowledge and it not being confrontational like you had in traditional roles or traditional project delivery roles, right? It was just a very different experience working, being able to bring people in, our ability to use the model to convey design information and have the right person on the team making the decisions for the outcomes based on the intent that the designers wanted. And how we communicated, how we worked together was pretty fascinating. And then, as we became part of Canon Design, we did a lot of collaborative delivery models and seeing how large projects, even small projects, how they function differently across that organization. They're a large AE firm, right? We had offices all over, and seeing how projects California work differently than projects in New York City versus Chicago versus St. Louis, wherever they were. There was one thing that was true. Those design build projects were always much easier and less confrontational to work in, right?
Yeah.
Even if we were just there were projects at Canon Design where we were the design builder. It was called design-led design build. We were the design builder, and we had that contract with the owner, and everybody else was contracted to us. Obviously, that's a very different scenario, right? You are the lead on the project, but even projects where we may have just been the architect, or where we may have just been the engineer, or one of the disciplines, the opportunity to sit down at the outset and communicate and collaborate and set expectations for the project was just totally different. It was a different culture. It was a different way to work, and it was much better.
Yeah, so you were a strong advocate then for design build because of your experience, firsthand experience, even before you came to DBIA.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, it was great because we had projects where I can remember there was, a series of projects that we had worked on with Kaiser Permanente, but one of the first build teams that we worked with was McCarthy. And these were out in Southern California, and I can remember sitting down with Dexter Preston, sitting down with him. We were just the architect, and we were the A and the E on those projects, and just sitting down with him and working through things about how we were collectively going to solve the owner's challenges with BIM, how we were going to deliver the models, how we were going to bring other information in, how we were going to deliver that end of day turnover model for them as they were trying to figure out how they were going to use it post occupancy. And it was just a collaborative engagement. It wasn't, in other projects, it's like, well, no, that's not in our scope. We're not doing that. Nope, that's an ad service, hands off, not us. We got to deliver a set of 2D documents at the end of the day, and that's all we're doing. It's just a different attitude, different perspective, and it's much easier to work in that scenario.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of handshake, a lot of collaboration, but you've also developed numerous best practice documents for DBIA, including, I believe, a VDC exhibit that can be used for contracts, which is fantastic. This is going beyond a handshake, and it's really formally helping define VDC scopes and deliverables at the contract level. Why is it so crucial to move beyond this open collaboration and just beyond a handshake?
Well, if it's not in the contract, you're not accountable for it, right? I mean, and I always thought that was a big challenge in my previous role of just trying to get our project managers and the principals in charge of projects to even use in the contract language. That's fine if the model isn't being shared, but document it. Just getting people in a different mindset and leadership that this is just as important as everything else that we're doing in our contracts, because it's always going to come up, right? If you're in a low bid scenario, and if I'm the architect and the only thing I had to do was deliver a set of construction documents that was going to get passed off for the builder to bid on and build from, I have no obligation to give them the model or do anything with it. So I never would have created that model with any intent beyond doing my deliverable work. And that's fine. There's nothing malicious about that, right? But that comes with the quality of the model and the reliability of it. I think those two words are there. That's what it was done for. And we all know at the end of the day, the builder's going to come in and say, hey, can we have the model? And then the question is usually no. Why? Because it wasn't part of my contract. But if you don't even have that stated in your contract, then you're just creating this tension and friction and finger pointing and all those things. So, it's like, say what we're doing. We're creating this for the purpose of this and do it. Or, great, let's do more with it and document it. And we need a good way to do that. DBIA had traditionally had a BIM exhibit that was there. It's outdated, right? I mean, somebody did a good job years ago. I think it was like 10 years ago, getting something documented, which was fantastic. But it needed updated, and that's what we're in process of doing. So it's not out yet. It's coming though. We've gone through multiple iterations. Myself and our VDC committee have gone through that. We're working with DBIA's contracts committee. And it's actually getting presented back to them later this month. So we have a draft, which is, I would say, intent plus. We've gone through multiple iterations, but having that there is good. And, that also ties in some of the other things that we're doing. The other big one is the VDC leaders' roles and responsibilities on design build projects. We're getting ready to publish that as well. That's gone through its final final iterations, and we'll actually be much like we did last year. I shouldn't say I wasn't on the panel. Much like the DBIA VDC committee did with you on the BIM uses and that collaboration last year at a conference. We're going to be having a presentation on that at the main conference about who is this person, why are they there, what value do they bring, what are the activities that they need to be leading. So now you start to see, hey, this person not only needs to write a BIM execution plan, but they need to be there while they're documenting this VDC exhibit that's an attachment to the prime agreement needs to be there. It needs to be completed by them, and it needs to be connected back to other things like the execution plan, what BIM uses are being identified, how we're creating our deliverables, the LOD matrix, all of these things. So starting to connect this larger idea of people, process, and technology.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You mentioned, and I don't want to fail to highlight this because I have been at the national conference the DBIA has, I think 3 years, and every year has been just fantastic. Just the connections, the network, and the last couple of years you've developed a pre-conference workshop.
Yeah.
Correct me if I get the title wrong, but the VDC Leadership Exchange workshop.
Yep.
And can you describe like what happens at this workshop, the pre-conference workshop here?
Yeah, so what we've done is this was an opportunity to really expand the conversation where before we had some kind of identified, when I first started there was some tracks that got formalized the first year I was there, and then we talked about how do we expand it. So what we did was we're already going to have this great group of industry leaders that are there, but what we wanted to do was make an early session, not to exclude the technology BIM VDC conversation from the main conference, which we still have sessions scattered throughout, but really have a focused area on the day before that afternoon. And we built out 2 tracks. This was really something that I saw at the outset. Our membership at DBIA are typically, I would put in a bucket of non-VDC professionals, right? They are not the ones who are handling that part of the project, who are delivering those digital models, who are doing anything with those, but they are the ones who receive the value of it, right? The construction managers, the design integration managers, project managers, all of those people. So we needed to, one, educate them, but also cultivate and bring into our membership all of the VDC leaders out there who are doing this. So we really created this session where it was trying to pull those traditional attendees in a half day early and get them educated and made aware of some of the opportunities, which typically come from project case studies, but also start to bring in the fact that if you were that design integration manager and I was the BIM manager in my office, say, hey, Brian, you need to come and go with me to this pre-conference workshop and stay for the rest of the conference too and see what's out there. So we have these kind of deep dive focuses for more experienced individuals and the non-VDC professionals track to show these case studies, ROI value, and get them all together in the room and start to merge this up and then continue that conversation through the main conference. So yeah, this is the 3rd year we're doing it. We just a couple weeks ago opened up registration, which has the full program on it. So definitely, so for your audience, if this is a conversation you're interested in, definitely go check that out. And join us in Las Vegas in November.
Yeah, I'm definitely will be there.
Well, we know you're going to be. Yeah, you're presenting. Yeah. You have a panel of owners, which I think is important, right? When we talk about that kind of diversity, so we have those 2 tracks. Danielle DeBuncio from the CEO of Via Technic, she's going to be our keynote this year, where she's going to kick off kind of a larger visioning perspective of where the industry is. And I know you'll be moderating a session at the end with a panel of owners who are embarking on a series they're all at different levels of their adoption of BIM and digital deliverables and VDC and technology and everything, but how does that transition from the design and construction phase into them as the owners? So that'll be a great kind of closing session to take all these ideas and really understand what are the owners that we're working with asking for, and how do we do a better job of achieving that and helping them understand what's able to be utilized. And
just to mention for our audience, yes, if you happen to be tuning into the podcast episode later after the event, this is an annual event, so they can go to dbia.org and look at the events. And you not only have the national event, you have several regional events as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of things are happening at DBIA. You also, just from you being at the conference, I see, there's typically a practitioners forum, there's an owners forum,
Yep.
and there's a lot of content for both. And as you mentioned, the panel I'm moderating is for owners, so I may or may not use some of the information in your answer for that panel prep. But you mentioned owners, so some owners may be new to this whole concept idea of VDC, and they don't have as much visibility into like what kind of difference this is making for them, direct visibility at least. So, for how does a well executed VDC strategy within a design build framework really change the value conversation, not just during the project, but for really the entire life cycle of the building? One of the owners, why should they care?
Well, I think the why should owners care is kind of, it's the same answer regardless of project delivery. I think owners traditionally are relying on paper, right? We always kind of see those pictures of rolls of drawings and drawing stacks and where's information about anything. I think that's kind of an initial, analog to digital transition for them, but they can really, accelerate that by having a well-defined BIM project delivery standard or digital deliverable standard, whatever you want to call it, to really scope out how they can get the information from the design team, from the construction team, in a way that is usable day one, in a format that's accessible and can be integrated into their systems. It's not about changing and say, hey, we're going to stop using everything we did in the past and go somewhere else, but gathering that information in a usable format to move downstream into their operations. I think a design build team is ideal because you have that. It goes back to the contractual structure, right? The owner has a single contract with a single entity as the design builder to deliver both design and construction services, and everybody else is funneling up through them. So how better to deliver a source, we talk about a single source of truth. We're not going to get into that, right? A source of truths that is combined, federated in a way that can be delivered to them to be usable, right? It's not, okay, here's some information coming from the architect as a deliverable. Here's some information coming from the mechanical engineer as a deliverable. Here's the information coming from the sheet metal fabricator as a deliverable and the general contractor. And now it's like, which of this is right? Now you have that opportunity to really focus how that's coming in and plan for it at the outset, not at the end of a deliverable milestone like construction documents or at the end of fabrication or shop drawing review or just a turnover. Now it's a streamlined, inclusive plan from start to finish.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of experience working with owners and large owners. For example, the Ohio State University, helping develop their campus-wide BIM project delivery standards. And so in all your experiences, just your own observation, what would you say is one of the most common misconceptions that owners have about the BIM deliverable?
We kind of just touched on one, right? A single source of truth. They're going to get a model with all this information in it, and that's the only thing they need, right? I think that's one of them. And I think the other one is that they have to, if they don't get everything, they're getting nothing. And I think that was one of the first things that I saw back when we started with the BIM project delivery standard at the Ohio State University was predicated on space management. That was the initial use. When we first started, I first started working with Ohio State back in 2010. Chance meeting with Joe Porstosky, who's been leading that initiative since then, and it was, we're going to have a BIM for existing buildings project, and we're going to transition all of our paper, CAD to three-dimensional building information models so that we can better track space. And their goal was to get that deviation down. They didn't have a strong handle. I shouldn't say they didn't have a strong handle. They felt they could get a better handle on what they had and understanding how much space they actually had. And that was the foundation, right? That was their original use case, was to better understand how much space they had. And obviously that goes out to research money. There's a healthcare facility, and that has all of the research funding and Medicare and Medicaid stuff that comes out of that. Retail space, leasable space, tenable space, all the things that they have to really make sure that, they understand these things. And from that, they very quickly started seeing all these opportunities, right? So, and that's what led to them producing an RFP to write a BIM standard, which we were fortunate enough to win at Astorino, which we were teamed up with Messer Construction, and we delivered that to Ohio State. But there was a lot of really good lessons learned and really understanding what the university wants. And I think or what an owner wants, and in this case happened to be university. But I think the biggest thing was, helping owners. And I think this goes back to owners, right? Your opportunity not being, more than likely not having a BIM expert on your team, not really probably having a deep understanding of BIM shouldn't be a challenge or hurdle to you, but find your trusted design professional partners, your trusted build partners, and have a conversation with them. That was the biggest success thing for us, for Andy and I working, and Ron working with the university, just having a dialogue. What are we doing? What do you need? How do you get this information? Well, what about this? No, that doesn't really work. Well, does this work better? Yeah, that's what we do. But can we do this too? Yeah, we can do that. And having that dialogue of really finding, it wasn't, there's an answer, we're giving you this, and this is going to solve all your problems. Really understanding what their challenges were, why they were a challenge, where they were getting data from, where they were getting information from, where the redundancies were, and how we could streamline those processes, but also giving teams a framework across multiple project delivery types that would be executed on the university to achieve them in the same way. So it had to be very flexible, but I'll still have the same outcome at the end. So.
Yeah, I love that. That's an excellent tip about being flexible and having the conversation. I have observed that many participants in the AECO, stakeholders in the AECO industry, oftentimes they will go to that discussion not to have more of this is what we do. It's more of a marketing or sales without realizing that when you're talking about BIM and VDC, those things often have to be catered. You can't give them everything. Everything is very expensive, right? So you have to get down to what the need is and how you can meet that need. Well, so excellent tip, excellent strategy.
And you don't want to create waste, right? I mean, that's kind of one of the big things. If I'm going to give you this information, you're not going to use it, it's going to be outdated, and you go to it in a year and it's not the right information or it's disconnected, then that's not good either.
Right, yeah. So let's dive a little deeper on some of the BIM standards, the underlying standards that I know you've been very much involved in. The BIM forums level of development, LOD specification, you've been very involved in that, was heavily involved in some of the events in the past. I know you helped plan and co-chair an event or two. So for our audience, could you break down why defining how much information? So we just talked about that with the owners, is getting the right level or right amount of information, the right level of development. Why is it so critical for managing expectations, budget, and ultimately the usability of the data?
Well, I mean, I think LOD is basically a giant pool plan effort for model delivery, right? Starting at the end of the day. You define how model element, assemblies, components, and systems are going to evolve throughout the course of the project. Who is going to be responsible for their evolution? Who's the model element author? And when do those model element authors change? Because ultimately they are going to change, right? You're the mechanical engineer or the plumbing engineer is designing a system. At some point, that's going to make some leap from 300 to 200 or 300 to 350 and 400 based on what the project needs. And that leap is going to cause be done by a transition of responsible parties. I think the other big thing is defining, the key word that we always use when we talk about level of development is reliability. I think you develop something and you're conveying how reliable that information is for another party to utilize. And that just speaks to collaboration and building trust in the information that's there. So if I'm on a design build team and I'm the architect and the general contractor on the team wants to know when he or she can start taking curtain wall information off for quantities and scopes because they're working with the vendor or they're working with an installer to try to start figuring out things, I need to be able to use level of development to convey when that system has been really defined. Hopefully we're all communicating about it too. It's not the single entity to say, well, when it magically flips to LOD 300, then you can have it. And that's not till CDs, so good luck, right? That's not the point of it. But as all things are developing at different stages, you really have the opportunity to say, hey, we got this part nailed down. Now let's get it to the next party so they can start providing feedback, give us insight early so we can make corrective decisions that may come up. There may be things that we miss. There may be some insight for opportunities to save money. Have you thought about this system? It really meets your needs better than what you're trying to accomplish here. And, that may cause some update to the design, but we can do it earlier instead of later, which causes real issues and heartaches out on the job site. So I think, LOD is really important. It also is a way to communicate with a common language. If we all understand it and use it by referring to the specification, we have a common understanding of what things mean. If an owner says they want something at a certain LOD at a certain time frame, we know what that means. That may require staffing changes to get different parts of the design to different stages. That may require a certain expense to do an existing documentation of something, but it's all part of the planning process. And I think that, when you start thinking about it in a lean pool planning way, that really brings the VDC conversation up to the forefront as part of the team, right? It's not something extra that somebody else is doing off to the side, but I've been in meetings where we're like, hey, we need to get this steel package out early, and this is where it is, and you're sitting there listening and saying, okay, well, we're going to get this, and we're bringing in this trade fabricator in earlier. How are we going to transition as a structural engineer? How are we going to get them steel? When are we going to do it? Now you're starting to plan how the tool is going to lead to the information for the team to get it, and starting thinking about interoperability, deliverable milestones, file formats, when's it coming back, how are you going to review it? And that's really the sweet spot of where you integrate BIM into the project team's delivery process. And it's not just something else that's going on off to the side.
Yeah. That's incredibly deep insight from somebody who helped develop it and somebody who has put it into practice as well. Speaking of practice, and we're kind of winding up our interview, Tom, here, we already touched on that you've had an expansive career. You've held different roles such as BIM manager, digital practice leader, now director of VDC. And, our audience can look at your career trajectory and success, and definitely I think they can glean and learn from some of that. So I basically have a kind of a 3-part question here. How have the required skills for digital leadership changed? And you've gone through that metamorphosis as the industry has required different changes. And what beyond technology, besides just learning, a new software or something like that, what really makes a successful VDC leader today?
I think it's interesting because you kind of look back when I started. I graduated in '97, and I think back to when we had traditional CAD manager roles. Not all firms had them, right? That was some kind of position, but it was somebody who was just doing something and they were really savvy with this one software that architects and engineers use to produce their documents. I think when we got to BIM, you had architects, engineers, builders who were in those traditional practitioner roles really gravitate towards, wow, this technology allows me to do my job more efficiently. I can be better at what I'm doing. I can solve problems in a different way. I can also do all of these other things once I have an intelligent model created. And I think that was the difference, that a lot of BIM managers, VDC managers, whatever, aren't just people who were really smart and skilled with the technology and doing something with it. They were practitioners who saw how this technology enabled them to do their job better. And they became advocates. So it was really this, integration of, BIM and practice in the early days. And I think those people have evolved in that, and they've been really passionate about saying, hey, I was able to be better doing this. Let me show my peers and my colleagues how to do this as well. And I think the focus always hasn't been about just learning a new tool, but imparting how that tool allows the entire team to utilize the information that's there. I think that's been the biggest thing that I've seen. And that's where the opportunity is, right? Getting it into everybody's hands, not being a silo that's off to the side, really integrating it in a very inclusive way into what projects are doing. I think that's been the biggest difference, taking all those experiences, right? I worked in an architecture-only firm. I worked in an AE firm, that had, construction, and I was able to, take all those experiences and add to my knowledge and continue to figure out how these things connected. And then being able to work with just randomly sharing things with owners, with working with the Ohio State University was very different because I didn't seek that out as an idea. I think way back when you started hearing, oh, well, owners are starting to do this. That's interesting. Yeah, I'd love to sit down and talk to somebody how we do that. So just gaining all those experiences and figuring out how you can apply technology to those different aspects of the industry is the most valuable part. I think that's been the biggest change.
So I guess the third part of my question then would be, let's just say someone is, they're in their last year or they've just graduated from college, and you being a seasoned professional, what is the one piece of advice you would give someone just professionally entering the AECO industry?
Yeah, I would say take advantage of all of the opportunities that you have to be an architect, an engineer, or a construction manager, or a project engineer before you worry about becoming a BIM manager or a VDC manager, right? Technology is easy. You can learn technology on your own. That's not a problem. Figure out where the challenges are in your business and then figure out how to do that technology. So keep learning the technology, but there's no replacing the real world experience of the job, right? And we learn a great deal in college or wherever you're at, but once you get out on the job site or in the middle of a project, that's where you see all these things. Then apply your technology to that. Don't worry about going directly into a technology role, as much as you may want to do that. If you just knowing how something works isn't going to help you apply it on the job site. It's not going to help you understand what that ROI is. It's not going to help you drive where those efficiencies are. And those are the things that you need to do to be able to promote the value to your peers.
Very good. Very good advice. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, Brian. I really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your insights on VDC, BIM, design build, and some of your personal journey. That is, great tips and great advice for those who are just entering the field. So thank you so much for joining us today. A few things that I took away from the session was just the reminder of, deep collaboration. That's why VDC and design build really go good together. It's all about collaboration, but not just a handshake, more than a handshake. It does need to be in the contract language, well-defined, well-established VDC scope. And then our discussion around, the interaction with owners and helping owners who, are not VDC specialists or BIM specialists and, maybe have misconceptions about, what's going to come out of this process. Having the conversation and understanding, what is their real need, what is the data that they need, and having an open conversation with the project team about being able to ultimately deliver that. So any final thoughts or any final words you'd like to share?
No, I think I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast here and share our experiences. Thanks for letting me talk about our upcoming event, and hopefully we'll see a lot of people there. And if any listeners have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I appreciate the time. It's always fun talking to you, Johnny.
Yeah, great talking to you. And again, I fully endorse this conference. I have been 3 years in a row, maybe 4. It has been exciting and wonderful every year.
Appreciate it.
Highly recommended. And plus, it's in Las Vegas, so there's this year there's a lot of stuff to do. So
Yep.
make it a priority to go. Hope to see our audience there as well. And when you go, come up and find Brian and myself. Let's have a chat.
Sounds good. Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to AECO Tech Talk. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. We'd once again like to thank our sponsor, AECO Digitech, expert consultation for digital transformation. For more content, including video versions of our interviews and other exclusive material, check out our YouTube channel. Just search for AECO Tech Talk.